I found my mother's platinum brooch missing for 3 weeks, listed on a marketplace account with the caption, "Inherited jewelry, need cash fast." The account belonged to my daughter-in-law. She called it old stuff. I called it a micro-engraved heirloom with registered insurance. I didn't scream. I opened an anonymous account, placed a deposit, and began planning a different kind of refund revenge. This time, no tears. Just paperwork, digital evidence, and a takedown in the middle of a crowded flea market. My name is Margaret Ellison Maggie, to anyone who's known me longer than 5 minutes, and at 62. I thought I'd seen enough intensive care drama to last me through a peaceful retirement. Turns out, the real drama was waiting for me at home. I'd spent 37 years as an ICU nurse at Ridgelake General before hanging up my scrubs. These days, my hands that once threaded IV lines now coax tomatoes from stubborn Pennsylvania soil. Tuesday mornings. I teach free first aid classes at the community centre CPR to teenagers who'd rather be on their phones. Wound care to anxious new parents. My husband Paul passed 8 years ago from a stroke that took him in his sleep. Quick and merciful. I keep his reading chair by the window, though nobody sits in it anymore. Tyler, my only child, married Sloane 3 years ago in what she called a Pinterest-worthy autumn wedding. 200 guests, mason jar centerpieces, and a photographer who made us retake the mother-son dance because the lighting wasn't golden hour enough. Sloane documents everything: unboxing videos, outfit of the day posts, something she calls lifestyle micro-influencing that apparently pays for her designer handbags. She looked at my mother's jewelry the way an appraiser looks at estate sale fines. All calculation and no sentiment. The jewelry itself tells a different story. My mother, Helen, served as an army nurse in the Pacific during World War II. She came home with shrapnel scars on her left shoulder and a small collection of jewelry she'd bought piece by piece in Hawaii, Australia, and the Philippines, not expensive at first. But she'd had them reset and improved over the years. A platinum brooch with a sapphire center, bought from a widow in Honolulu. A string of Mikimoto pearls from a grateful patient's family. A sapphire ring she'd saved for monthly, payment by payment, during her first year stateside, before she died. Mom had been specific in her will to my daughter Margaret, and should she have a granddaughter, to be passed to her on her 18th birthday. No granddaughter yet. Tyler and Sloane claim they're not ready, though Sloane's Instagram stories suggest it's more about maintaining her size 2 figure. The warning signs started small. During their engagement dinner, Sloane had asked about the jewelry's value. Just curious about insurance purposes. At their wedding, she'd tried on the pearl necklace without asking, posing for selfies until I quietly retrieved it. Last Thanksgiving, she'd suggested I should display them properly instead of keeping them in a safe, because beautiful things shouldn't be hidden away. They're insured for their replacement value, I'd told her, showing her the paperwork. See these micro-engravings? Each piece has a unique identifier. The insurance company requires updated photos every 2 years. She'd seemed oddly interested in that detail. 3 weeks ago, we had our monthly family dinner. I made Tyler's favorite pot roast, and Sloane pushed Brussels sprouts around her plate while live-streaming her cheat meal to her followers. After dessert, which Sloane filmed but didn't eat, they helped me clear the table. Tyler washed, I dried. Sloane put away. Normal. Routine. Except when I went to my bedroom that night to put away my mother's brooch, which I'd worn to dinner. As I always did for family gatherings, it wasn't in my jewelry box. I checked my blouse. The floor, the dining room, even the trash. Nothing. You probably just misplaced it, Sloane said when I called the next morning. You know how things disappear when you're tired. It'll turn up. But I'm not the misplacing type. 37 years of tracking controlled substances and monitoring critical patients trains you to notice when something's out of place. I checked my doorbell camera footage from that night. At 10:43 p. Nothing unusual. At 10:44, Sloane's car was pulling out of my driveway odd, since they'd left at 10:15 p. According to my memory and the kitchen clock, I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I did what any suspicious former nurse would do. I started documenting. The safe where I keep the jewelry has a digital lock that records entry times. Someone had opened it at 9:52 p. while I was in the bathroom. The combination was Tyler's birthday, something both he and Sloane knew. I checked the other pieces. They were there, but something felt wrong. The weight was off. The sapphire ring's stone seemed cloudier. The pearl necklace's clasp, which had always been tricky, closed too easily. I took them to my jeweler, Murray, who'd maintained them for 20 years. Murray put them under his loupe and frowned. Maggie, these are good replicas, but they're not your pieces. See here, the nacre on these pearls is too perfect, no natural variations. This sapphire is synthetic, well-made fakes. Probably cost a few hundred each to produce, but fakes nonetheless. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of family dinners, casual texts, and Sloane's cherry-bright, "Hi, Mom," whenever she called. 3 weeks of me keeping my mouth shut, installing new locks, and waiting to see what she'd do next. I created a secondary Facebook account under the name Sarah Morrison, using a stock photo of a middle-aged woman with greying hair. Then I began my hunt. Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark, Depop, Mercari. I filtered by location within 50 miles, jewelry category, metal-type platinum. I screenshot everything that could possibly match, building a digital folder with obsessive precision. On day 4 of searching, at 11:37 p, I found it. The listing was on Facebook Marketplace, posted by Sloane's Treasures, the same account she used to sell her gently worn designer clothes. The platinum brooch sat on cream velvet under a ring light, every detail captured in high resolution. The caption read, "Vintage platinum brooch with genuine sapphire. Inherited piece. Estate sale find. Authentication available. $4,500 OBO. Need gone. ASAP moving soon." My hands didn't shake. They never did during codes in the ICU, and they didn't now. I zoomed in on the photo. There on the right clasp was the tiny scratch from when 2-year-old Tyler had grabbed it during Christmas dinner in 1992. The micro-engraving was partially visible, HME 1947, Helen Marie Ellison, the year she bought it. I took screenshots from every angle, saved the URL, archived the page through the Wayback Machine. The posting timestamp showed 3:12 p.m., 2 days after our family dinner. The seller's email linked to Sloane's business account, Sloane's Treasures, igmail.com. I checked the other items in her shop. My stomach tightened. The sapphire ring was listed as Art Deco-inspired cocktail ring, perfect for vintage lovers. The pearl necklace, authentic Mikimoto-style pearls, classic elegance for the modern woman. Each piece photographed professionally, each with detailed descriptions that danced around their true provenance, each priced just below market value for quick sale. I opened my safe again, examining the replicas more carefully under the LED desk lamp Paul had used for tying fishing flies. The fakes were good enough to fool me for 3 weeks. But under magnification, the differences were clear. No micro-engravings, machine-perfect symmetry where handwork should show. Chinese characters stamped inside the band of the fake ring where my mother's jeweler's mark should be. At 8 Sheem sharp the next morning, I called Harper Vale. Harper Vale's office. How may I direct your call? This is Maggie Ellison. I need to speak with Harper about a theft and fraud matter. It's urgent. Harper had handled Paul's estate and knew me well enough to take my call immediately. I laid out the facts, like presenting a patient history items missing, evidence documented, perpetrator identified. Don't confront her yet, Harper said, her voice sharp as winter air. Pennsylvania law requires proof of intent to permanently deprive you of property. Right now, she could claim she was selling them for you, planning to surprise you. Any number of excuses. We need more. What kind of more? First, get everything appraised again, the fakes and documentation of what the real pieces are worth. Second, file a claim with your insurance company, but ask them to hold off on contacting her. Third, we need to prove she knows these are stolen, not borrowed. Can you make contact as a buyer? I could. As Sarah Morrison. I messaged Sloane's Treasures that evening, expressing interest in the brooch. Beautiful piece. Is this a family heirloom? I only buy authenticated items with clear provenance. Her response came within minutes. Hi, yes. It's from an estate sale. The elderly owner passed with no heirs, so all documentation was lost. But I can provide a jeweler's appraisal confirming authenticity. Priced to move, I have several interested buyers. I screenshot that lie and forwarded it to Harper. The next step was hiring Ron Calder, a retired county detective who now did private investigation work. Harper recommended him. He's handled insider theft for 30 years, discreet as a corpse. Calder looked like every cop I'd ever treated in the ER, thick through the middle, permanent coffee stain on his tie, notebook that never left his hand. He took my case for $1,500 plus expenses. I'll initiate a buy, he said. Record everything. Get her on video, authenticating the pieces, claiming ownership. That's your proof of intent. I also called Harbour and Hearth Insurance. My agent, Donna, had handled my policies for 15 years. When I explained the situation, she pulled up my documentation photos, appraisals, micro-engraving certificates. Internal theft by a family member, she said. Covered, but complicated. We'll need a police report eventually. But for now, I'm activating an investigation claim. Our fraud department will coordinate with your detective. If these items are sold before recovery, we'll pursue criminal charges. The numbers were significant. Current appraisal values. Brooch, $12,000. Ring, $8,000. Pearls, $15,000. Total $35,000. Grand larceny in Pennsylvania. A felony. I sat in my kitchen that night, staring at the family photo from last Christmas. Tyler's arm around Sloane, her smile bright as her highlighted hair. My mother's brooch pinned to my red cardigan. How had I missed this? How had my son missed this? Or had I invited Tyler and Sloane for dinner that Saturday, made lasagna nothing special, just comfort food that required sitting at the table. No phones, no quick escapes. They arrived at 6:15 p. Sloane carrying a bottle of wine that she immediately photographed against my kitchen backsplash. The lighting in here is gorgeous, she said. angling for another shot. Very authentic farmhouse. Tyler kissed my cheek, distracted. He'd been working longer hours at Ravencrest Mutual. Something about quarterly reports. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. When had my boy started looking so worn? We sat down to eat, and I steered the conversation carefully, like threading a central line, steady hands, clear purpose. "I've been thinking about your grandmother lately," I said, cutting into the lasagna. "Did I ever tell you what she said about her jewelry?" Tyler glanced up. "Something about keeping promises. Close. She said heirlooms aren't for selling, they're for keeping promises to the future. Each piece was bought with a specific woman in mind, even if that woman wasn't born yet." Sloane twirled her fork. "That's sweet, but kind of impractical. I mean, styles change. What one generation treasures, the next might not even want." "Perhaps," I said, keeping my voice neutral as saline. "Though value isn't always about want. Sometimes it's about trust, about knowing something will be there when it's needed." "Mom, you okay?" Tyler asked. "You're being kind of philosophical tonight." "Just thinking about security. Actually, I need to update some insurance paperwork. They want new photos of the jewelry, fresh appraisals. The insurance company is very particular now. They even want to add new micro-engravings for tracking." Sloane's wine glass paused midway to her lips. "New engravings." "Oh, yes. Apparently there's been a rash of thefts where people replace real pieces with replicas. So now they want multiple identifying markers. They're even suggesting I replace everything in the safe with duplicates for everyday wear. Keep the originals in a deposit box." I watched her process this, her influencer smile frozen in place. "That seems extreme," she said. "Does it? The jeweler showed me some of the replicas available now, absolutely stunning work. You'd need an expert to tell the difference. He's making me a full set for about $800 total." Tyler pushed Brussels sprouts around his plate. "Mom, we need to talk about something." My chest tightened, but I kept my expression mild. "What's that?" "Honey, Sloane and we're having some financial issues. Her online business isn't doing as well as we'd hoped, and my salary isn't stretching like it used to." Sloane jumped in. "It's just temporary. The algorithm changed, and engagement is down. Everyone's struggling right now. Brands aren't paying for partnerships like they were." "I see," I said. "How much do you need?" "We don't need," Tyler started. "15,000 would help," Sloane said quickly. "Just to get us through the next few months while I pivot my content strategy." 15,000. Less than half what my stolen jewelry was worth. "That's a significant amount," I said. "Have you considered selling some things? Your car, perhaps, or that Chanel bag collection?" "Those are investments," Sloane said, her voice sharp. "You don't sell investments at a loss." "No," I agreed, looking her straight in the eye. "You don't sell what doesn't belong to you either." The table went silent. Tyler's fork clattered against his plate. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sloane asked. "Nothing specific. Just general life advice. More wine." I poured with steady hands, then changed the subject to Tyler's work, the weather. Anything but what sat between us like a corpse on a gurney. But I'd planted the seed. Sloane now believed the safe contained replicas. The real pieces she thought were already gone, replaced as part of the insurance update. After they left at 8:45 p., I found Tyler's childhood bedroom door ajar. Nothing looked disturbed, but the jewelry box on my dresser had been moved just half an inch, but I'd put a thin piece of thread under it that morning. The thread was gone. She'd been checking, looking for the real pieces she thought I'd hidden elsewhere. I called Harper that night. She took the bait. She thinks the replicas in the safe are the replicas I had made for insurance purposes. Good. Let her believe that. Meanwhile, Calder says he's scheduled a buy for next week. He's posing as an estate dealer from New York. She's already agreed to bring all 3 pieces. What if Tyler's involved? Harper's pause stretched like a flat line. Then you'll have decisions to make. But Maggie, from what you've told me, he seems oblivious. Men often are when it comes to jewelry. I thought about my son's exhausted face, his quick defense of Sloane's spending, his complete lack of surprise when she'd asked for $15,000. Oblivious, maybe, or willfully blind. In the ICU, we'd had family members who couldn't see what was right in front of them, that their loved one was dying, that the interventions weren't working, that it was time to let go. Sometimes the kindest thing you could do was force them to see the truth. I made one more call that night, to Detective Calder. I want the meeting to be public, I said. Somewhere with witnesses. That's risky. She might spook. No. She's desperate and she thinks she's smart. Tell her you prefer public spaces for high-value transactions. Suggest the Shoreline Market on Sunday. It's crowded. Lots of estate dealers set up there. She'll feel safe. You planning something, Mrs. Ellison? Just keeping promises, I said. To my mother. To the future. To myself. Monday morning. I sat in Harper's office reviewing documents while rain streaked the windows. The desk between us held a neat stack of paperwork that would become my ammunition. First, we need a power of attorney specifically for asset recovery, Harper said, sliding papers across. This allows me to act on your behalf if things escalate quickly. Sign here and here. I signed with the same precision I'd once used for morphine counts. Second, this is a formal demand letter for return of property. We won't send it yet, but it's ready. It lists each piece, its appraised value, the micro-engravings, and gives her 72 hours to return them or face criminal charges. What about Tyler? His name isn't on anything. Legally, he's clear, unless we can prove knowledge and participation. But Maggie... Harper's voice softened. There's something else. The prenup you witnessed, remember the asset protection clause? I remembered. Tyler had insisted on it after watching his colleague lose everything in a divorce. Sloane had signed it 2 weeks before the wedding. Pouty, but compliant. I'd notarized it myself. Paragraph 12, Section C. Harper read, any act of theft, fraud, or conversion of Ellison family assets by either party voids all claim to marital property and triggers immediate repayment of any gifts or loans from the Ellison family trust. The trust Paul had set up. Small, but protected. Tyler was the beneficiary, but I was still the trustee. You're saying if she's convicted, not even convicted, if she's proven to have taken family property without permission, she forfeits everything, including the $10,000 wedding gift you gave them from the trust. I spent Tuesday at the bank, setting up a separate account for legal expenses. Wednesday, with the insurance investigator, a sharp woman named Patricia, who took notes like she was building a case for murder. Thursday, with Murray the jeweler, who created detailed affidavits about the replicas and agreed to testify if needed. I'm making something special, Murray said, pulling out a small box. Fake replicas of your replicas. Absolute junk. But they'll pass a quick inspection. Might come in handy. Why would I need fake fakes? Maggie, I've been in this business 40 years. When someone's stealing from family, they get greedy. She'll be back for more. Be ready. Friday. I changed my locks again. Electronic ones this time, with codes that changed daily. I installed cameras in the hallway, kitchen, and living room. Tiny things that looked like smoke detector parts. The security company tech, a young woman named Amy, showed me how to monitor them from my phone. You can set motion alerts for specific zones, Amy explained. And this model saves to the cloud automatically. 30-day storage, admissible in court. You install a lot of these for family problems. Amy's expression stayed professional. More than you'd think, ma'am. Detective Calder called that evening with updates. He'd established his cover as Ronald Cartwright, an estate dealer from Manhattan. Sloane had agreed to meet Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Shoreline Market. She's bringing all 3 pieces, he said. Claimed she has more coming in next week from another estate. Your daughter-in-law's got ambitious plans. What do you need from me? Stay away from the market. But I want you on standby. Once I confirm the items and get her admission on tape, we might need to move fast. Police, insurance, lawyers, everybody needs to be ready. I spent Saturday creating a timeline. Everything documented in a leather journal Paul had given me for our last anniversary. Every date, every conversation, every lie. I printed screenshots, organized them chronologically, built a case file like I'd once built patient charts, thorough, objective, undeniable. The insurance company had their own preparations. Patricia emailed me forms to sign, authorizations for pursuit of criminal charges, agreements for recovery procedures. We've flagged the serial numbers in our database, she wrote. If anyone tries to insure or formally appraise these pieces anywhere in the country, we'll know. I also opened a small trust account at Western Meridian Credit Union, depositing $5,000 for emergency legal remediation. The bank officer didn't ask questions, apparently. Elder financial abuse was common enough that they had procedures for protective accounts. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3:20 a.m., I stood in my kitchen holding the fake jewelry the pieces Sloane had left in my safe. Even these had cost her something to make. What kind of person spent hundreds of dollars on fake jewelry just to steal real pieces worth thousands? What kind of desperation drove that calculation? I thought about calling Tyler, warning him. But Harper was right. He needed to see this himself. Needed to face what he'd married without my interference first. In the ICU, we'd called it therapeutic confrontation, the moment when denial became impossible. Sunday morning arrived grey and humid. I dressed carefully, navy slacks, white blouse, comfortable shoes, nothing flashy, nothing that would stand out in a crowd. I packed a bag with the real jewelry still in my possession, despite what Sloane believed. The insurance papers, the affidavits, the prenup, everything I might need for whatever came next. At noon, Calder texted, "She's confirmed," bringing items in a Tiffany bag for authenticity, asked for cash or Venmo. I texted Harper, "Today's the day." Harper responded immediately, "Documents ready, stay calm." At 1 p.m., I drove towards Shoreline Market, but parked 3 blocks away at a meter. I wouldn't enter the market itself that was Calder's territory, but I'd be close enough if needed. My phone buzzed. "Tyler, Mum, you busy Sloane's at some vintage market for content. Want to grab coffee?" I stared at the text, my son, oblivious, thinking his wife was shopping for Instagram while she was actually selling his grandmother's jewelry. Can't today, honey, but we should talk soon. Everything okay? Ask me tomorrow, I typed, then deleted it. Instead, I sent, everything will be fine, at 1:45 p.m. I opened my laptop in the front seat, connected to my phone's hotspot, and pulled up the cloud storage for my security cameras. Empty house. Everything normal. Then I switched to my email, where Calder would send updates. 1:53 p.m. She's early. Setting up at booth 47. Has the items. 1:58 p.m. Making contact now. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Now came the payback. 2:10 p.m. Calder's text. She's not alone. Setting up full display. I sat forward in my car. Full display. The plan was for a discreet exchange, not a public sale. My phone buzzed again, a photo from Calder. Sloane had commandeered a vendor table, complete with a hand-lettered sign, Estate Jewelry and Vintage Treasures, authentication available. The Tiffany bag sat open. My mother's jewelry spread on black velvet. But there was more pieces I didn't recognize. Other people's heirlooms she'd somehow acquired. A cameo brooch, Art Deco earrings, a man's pocket watch. Another text. She's live streaming, calling it a pop-up estate sale experience. I pulled up Instagram on my phone, searched for Sloane's account. There she was, bright and bubbly, talking to her phone. Hey, Beauty's Surprise Sunday content. I've partnered with some local estates to bring you authentic vintage pieces at incredible prices. Everything must go today. The comments flooded in. Heart emojis, fire symbols, people asking for prices. She held up my mother's brooch. This stunning platinum piece just screams old Hollywood glamour, doesn't it? The sapphire is conflict-free vintage, so much more ethical than modern mining. Ethical. She was calling theft ethical. 2:25 p. Calder. Moving in for purchase. Recording everything. I watched Sloane's live stream as a man in a Yankees cap approached her table. Calder. Though the camera barely caught him, she immediately shifted into sales mode, setting the phone aside but not ending the stream. Through the ambient live stream audio, I could hear fragments, authenticated by my jeweler. Estate of an elderly woman. No family remaining. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. No family remaining. My mother had 5 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren. I existed. Tyler existed. 2:35 p. She's claiming more pieces arriving next week, taking advance orders. The live stream showed Sloane pulling out a leather portfolio, taking down information from several customers. She was building a client list for stolen goods she hadn't even stolen yet. Then I saw something that changed everything. Tyler appeared in the background of the live stream, carrying a box. He set it on the table, kissed Sloane's cheek, and started unpacking more jewelry. My son. My son was helping her. I grabbed my phone, called Harper immediately. Tyler's there. He's helping her sell everything. Are you certain he knows what they are? On the live stream. I watched Tyler hold up my mother's pearl necklace, examining the clasp. He knew that clasp. He'd watched me struggle with it every Christmas for 30 years. He knows, I said, my voice hollow as an empty room. Then we proceed as planned, but now we document his involvement too. I'm sorry. Maggie. 2:43 p. Patricia from the insurance company called. We have an investigator en route. Don't intervene yet. But Sloane was escalating. On the live stream, she announced a flash sale for the next hour. Everything 30% off plus. I'll throw in free authentication letters. She pulled out a stack of official-looking documents. Even from the grainy stream, I could see letterhead, signatures, stamps, forged providence, fake authentication. This wasn't just theft anymore. It was fraud on a massive scale. 2:51 p.m. Calder. Problem. Real buyer showed up, offering 8,000 cash for the brooch. 8,000. More than Sloane had listed it for online. She'd take it. I knew she would. I texted Calder. Let her sell it. Get the transaction on video. That's your mother's? I know what it is. Document everything. 3:05 p. I watched my son count cash on his wife's Instagram live. $8,000 in hundreds, which he rubber-banded and put in a Tommy Hilfiger bag. The buyer walked away with my mother's brooch in a gift box. Sloane had brought cream with a gold ribbon, like it was a legitimate purchase. Tyler high-fived Sloane. Actually, high-fived her. Like they'd just scored a touchdown instead of committed a felony. The pearl necklace sold next. 5,000 to a woman who said she was buying it for her daughter's wedding. It's perfect, the woman said. Such history in these pieces. Every piece has a story. Sloane agreed, wrapping the necklace in tissue paper. That's what makes estate jewelry so special. By 3:30 p.m., they'd sold not just my mother's jewelry, but 6 other pieces. The live stream viewer count showed over 300 people watching. Sloane kept promising more inventory, taking emails, building her criminal enterprise in full public view. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. Next week, we'll have some really special pieces. Medical memorabilia from a World War II nurse. Medals. Pins. Historical documents. Super rare. Museum quality. My mother's service medals. Her nursing pins. The commendation letter from General MacArthur himself. Things I'd kept in a different safe. Things Sloane must have photographed during her latest search of my bedroom. 3:41 p. Harper texted, police notified. They're waiting for signal. 3:45 p. The insurance investigator arrived, visible in the live stream as a blonde woman pretending to browse nearby tables. 3:48 p. Sloane announced they were packing up. Sold out of the best pieces, beauties. But don't worry next Sunday. Same time, same place. I'm calling it the Ridge Lake Estate Collection. You won't want to miss it. The Ridge Lake Estate Collection. She was branding her theft of my mother's legacy. Tyler folded the table while Sloane counted money on camera. Over $20,000 raised for charity today. Another lie, unless she considered herself a charity. 3:55 p. Calder's final text, following them out, have everything recorded, license plates of all buyers documented, ready for next phase. I started my car. The trap had evolved beyond what we'd planned. This wasn't just theft anymore. It was an entire criminal operation, run by my son and his wife, broadcast to hundreds of witnesses. The payback would have to be bigger now, more public, more complete. I drove home. My mother's empty jewelry box, waiting for pieces that were now scattered across Pennsylvania. But I had something Sloane didn't know about the real authentication papers, the micro-engravings, the insurance records, and now video evidence of interstate commerce fraud, since she'd been selling to out-of-state buyers online. At 4:15 p. I sat at my kitchen table and made a decision. No more playing defense. Tomorrow, I would take everything to the police myself. But next Sunday, I would be at the Shoreline Market when Sloane set up her Ridge Lake Estate collection. This time, I wouldn't be watching from a distance. This time, I would be the customer she'd never forget. Sunday arrived crisp and bright, the kind of October day that made the Shoreline Market bustle with families hunting for pumpkins and vintage treasures. I arrived at 1:30 p. 30 minutes before Sloane's promised start time, wearing a Cleveland Indians cap and sunglasses enough to avoid immediate recognition, but nothing suspicious. Calder had booth 42, directly across from where Sloane would set up. He'd arranged it as a legitimate antique dealer display, complete with business cards and a square reader. Patricia from Harbour and Hearth Insurance sat at booth 40, posing as a pottery vendor. Harper Vale herself was at the market's entrance, pretending to browse while keeping watch for Tyler's car. I positioned myself 3 booths down, examining hand-thrown mugs while keeping Sloane's space in peripheral view. My phone recorded everything, propped in my jacket pocket at the perfect angle. At 1:55 p. they arrived. Tyler carried 2 boxes, while Sloane wheeled a collapsible display case new since last week. Probably bought with my mother's jewelry money. She wore a blazer I'd never seen before, trying to look professional, legitimate. Hey beauties. She started live streaming immediately. Setting up for week 2 of the Ridge Lake Estate collection. Today we have those museum quality pieces I promised. She wasn't lying about that part. From my position, I watched her unwrap my mother's Purple Heart, awarded after she was wounded by shrapnel. Her Army Nurse Corps insignia. The commendation letter, now in a cheap acrylic frame. Tyler arranged the display while Sloane narrated for her audience. These pieces come from a private collection. The family wants to remain anonymous, but they've authorized full sale with portion of proceeds going to veterans' charities. Another lie. Every cent would go to her Chanel fund. 2:10 p. The crowd thickened. Sloane had promoted this sale all week, and buyers came prepared. I recognized several dealers from Philadelphia, serious collectors who'd driven hours for authenticated World War II memorabilia. That's when I made my move. I approached slowly, letting other customers browse first, listening to Sloane's pitch perfect in its deception. She'd done research, knew enough history to sound credible. She told one buyer that the Purple Heart belonged to a nurse who served at Pearl Harbor, wrong ocean entirely, but who would fact-check her here. At 2:23 p. I stepped up to the table. These are remarkable pieces, I said, keeping my voice lower, rougher than usual. Sloane didn't look up from wrapping a sale. Aren't they? Each one is authenticated. I have Providence documentation if you're interested. I am, particularly in the Purple Heart. My grandmother was an army nurse. Now she looked at me, but the cap and sunglasses held. Tyler stood behind her, checking his phone, oblivious. It's priced at $3,000, Sloane said. But for a fellow nurse's family, I could do $2,700. I picked up the medal, feeling its familiar weight. The back still bore the engraving, Helen M. Ellison, ANC, February 1945. The engraving is so clear, I said. Helen M. Ellison. That name sounds familiar. Sloane's smile tightened just slightly. Common name from that era. May I see the authentication? She pulled out a folder, extracted a document that made my stomach turn. A forged letter from the Ellison Estate Trust, which didn't exist, authorizing sale of all military memorabilia. The signature at the bottom purported to be mine. "This Margaret Ellison," I said, studying the forgery. "She's the executor." "Yes, elderly woman, recently moved to assisted living. Sad, really. No family left to appreciate these treasures." Behind her, Tyler finally looked up. His eyes went wide above his mask. He recognized my voice, my posture. Something. "Mom," he said. Sloane's head snapped around. "What?" I removed my sunglasses. "Hello. Sloane. Tyler." The live stream was still running. Sloane's hand moved toward her phone, but I was faster. "Don't stop streaming," I said, loud enough for the microphone. "Your viewers should see this." Patricia appeared at my left shoulder, Calder at my right. Harper Vale stepped behind Tyler, blocking any exit. "Mrs. Merritt," Patricia said, holding up her identification. "Harbour and Hearth Insurance, Fraud Division. These items are registered stolen property." The crowd, sensing drama, pressed closer. Several people had their phones out, recording. Sloane's own live stream viewer count climbed 400, 500, still rising. "I don't understand," Sloane stammered. "These were given to me to sell." "By whom?" I asked. "The elderly woman with no family. The one in assisted living." I held up the forged document. "The one whose signature you forged." I pulled out my driver's license, held it up to the crowd and the cameras. "I'm Margaret Ellison. These are my mother's medals. I am not elderly, not in assisted living, and very much not willing to sell my mother's Purple Heart." "This is a misunderstanding," Tyler said, finding his voice. "Mom, let's talk privately." "No." The word came out sharp as a scalpel. "You stood here last week and sold her jewelry. You counted the money. You knew exactly what you were doing." Harper Vale stepped forward. "Mr. Ellison? Mrs. Merritt, you're both being documented for interstate fraud, theft by deception, and forgery. I represent Mrs. Ellison and her insurance company." The crowd murmured. Sloane's live stream comments exploded. I could see them on her phone screen, still propped and recording. "OMG felony in real time. Is this real? Calling 911. Where's my mother's brooch?" I asked Sloane directly. "The one you sold last week for $8,000. We can get it back." "From the buyer in New Jersey?" "The one you shipped it to yesterday." Calder pulled out his notebook. "We have the tracking number." Sloane went pale beneath her foundation. I turned to address the crowd, the cameras, the live stream still broadcasting to what now showed 700 viewers. 6 weeks ago, this woman stole 3 pieces of heirloom jewelry from my safe. She replaced them with fakes, thinking I wouldn't notice. She listed them online as estate finds and sold them at this market. Today, she's selling my mother's military service medals earned by an army nurse who was wounded in the Pacific. I held up the Purple Heart, let everyone see it clearly. She forged my signature, created fake authentication, and claimed I was senile and abandoned. I am standing here, fully competent, and I want my mother's legacy returned. The crowd's sympathy shifted palpably. Someone shouted, "Shame on you," at Sloane. Another person started slow clapping, which spread until the entire market corner was applauding. Tyler grabbed Sloane's arm. "We need to go." "You're not going anywhere," Detective Ron Calder said, finally showing his actual badge. "Ridge Lake police were called 10 minutes ago. They'll want statements from both of you." Sloane's phone finally died, the live stream cutting off at 743 viewers. But dozens of other phones kept recording as two police officers arrived. Taking in the scene, Harper quickly explained. The coup de grace came when Patricia announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, Mrs. Ellison's jewelry was insured for $35,000. That makes this grand larceny, a felony in Pennsylvania. The officers cuffed neither of them, not yet, but they separated them, took statements, documented evidence. The entire market watched as box after box of stolen goods was catalogued, photographed, tagged. I stood there, holding my mother's Purple Heart, watching my son's life unravel in real time, streamed and shared across social media. This wasn't the payback I'd originally planned. It was more public, more complete, more devastating than anything I could have orchestrated alone. The police station's fluorescent lights made everyone look guilty. Sloane sat at a metal table, mascara streaking despite the waterproof label, while Tyler paced the interview room like a caged animal. I watched from behind one-way glass as Detective Morrison, not Calder, who'd recused himself, laid out the evidence. Mrs. Merritt, we have your Facebook marketplace listings, screenshots of your communications with buyers, video evidence of you selling items you knew were stolen. Morrison's voice was flat, professional. The forged authentication alone is a Class 3 felony. Harper stood beside me, documenting everything. Now comes the financial recovery. She handed me 3 documents. I read them while listening to Sloane claim she thought I'd given permission, that Tyler said it was fine, that she was helping me declutter. The first document, immediate asset recovery claim. Every item sold would be tracked. Buyers contacted. Pieces returned at Sloane's expense. Sign here, Harper indicated. This authorizes the insurance company to pursue recovery directly from the buyers, with Sloane liable for all costs. The second criminal restitution order. $35,000 for the jewelry's appraised value, $8,000 for the brooch already sold, $1,500 for Calder's investigation, $3,000 for legal fees. Total $59,500, Harper said. Due within 30 days or wage garnishment begins. The third document made my hand pause. The prenuptial agreement enforcement, with the clause highlighted, any act of theft, fraud, or conversion of Ellison family assets voids all claims to marital property and triggers immediate repayment of all gifts from the Ellison Family Trust. This includes the $10,000 wedding gift, the $5,000 for their house down payment, and the $3,000 for Sloane's business venture last year. Harper explained. $18,000 additional, separate from the criminal restitution. Through the glass, I watched Tyler finally understand. His face went from confused to horrified as Morrison showed him his own signature on the prenup, witnessed and notarized 3 years ago. My client will cooperate fully. Sloane's public defender was saying, she's willing to return all items immediately. The items are already sold, Morrison pointed out. To buyers in New Jersey, Delaware, Ohio, interstate commerce fraud makes this federal. Federal. The word hung in the recycled air like disinfectant. Harper pulled out her phone, showing me something that made my chest tighten. Your daughter-in-law's live stream. It's viral. 2 million views on TikTok. Someone titled it, Karen Steals from Mother-in-Law, Gets Caught Live. The comments were brutal. Sloane's Instagram had already lost 10,000 followers. Her business email was flooded with cancellations from her remaining sponsors. The internet had its own version of justice, swift and merciless. At 4:15 p.m., Tyler was released, no charges filed yet, pending investigation of his involvement. He found me in the lobby, his face a decade older than this morning. "Mom, did you know?" I asked. "When you helped her sell my mother's jewelry, did you know what it was?" His silence was admission enough. I thought, "Sloan said you'd promised them to her, that you were too proud to give them directly, so she should just take them. And you believed that I wanted to." His voice cracked. "We needed the money. Her business is failing. I'm about to lose my job. Ravencrest is downsizing. We're 40,000 in credit card debt." 40,000. On top of everything else. "So you sold your grandmother's legacy for what, a few months' breathing room?" "I'm sorry." "Sorry." In the ICU, families always said sorry after it was too late, after they'd insisted on futile care, after they'd fought against what needed to happen. Harper intervened. "Tyler, you need your own attorney. Your involvement makes you potentially liable for conspiracy charges. Also, your prenuptial agreement." "I know." He pulled out his phone, showed us an email. "Sloane's already filed for divorce. Her lawyer sent this an hour ago." The irony was perfect. She was leaving him to avoid the debt she'd created. "The prenup works both ways," Harper said, scanning the divorce filing. "She gets nothing from you either, and the criminal restitution follows her regardless." Patricia from the insurance company arrived with recovered items, my mother's medals, the fake jewelry Sloane had used as replacements, and, surprisingly, 2 pieces from other families who'd already come forward. "The Hendersons from Allentown," Patricia explained. "Saw the live stream, recognized their grandmother's cameo. The Nguyens from Cherry Hill identified their father's pocket watch. Both filing charges. More charges. More restitution. Sloane's debt climbing towards 6 figures. At 5:30 p.m., Sloane was released on her own recognizance, ankle monitor attached, passport surrendered. She emerged looking smaller, her influencer polish stripped away. She saw us in the lobby and started toward Tyler, but Harper stepped between them. "Mrs. Merritt, any communication with the victims or witnesses could violate your release terms. I just need to get my things. Your belongings will be available after you've vacated the marital home," Harper said. "You have 72 hours. Sloane's Uber arrived. Her BMW had been seized as potential proceeds of criminal activity. As she left, she turned back once. "You could have just helped us," she said to me. "You have money." "I had family heirlooms," I corrected. "And a son I trusted." The door closed on whatever she might have replied. Tyler stood in the fluorescent lobby, unemployed, soon to be divorced, potentially facing charges, definitely facing bankruptcy. The son I'd raised to be ethical, honest, careful. "What do I do now?" he asked. Harper handed him a business card. "Criminal defense attorney. Very good, very expensive. You'll need both." Then she handed him another document. "Your mother's prepared to cover your legal defense, conditional on 3 requirements." I watched him read complete financial counseling, full restitution to all victims, testimony against Sloane if requested. "You're saving me?" he asked. "I'm giving you one chance to save yourself," I said. "Your grandmother survived World War II. You can survive this." He signed without reading the rest, without noticing the 4th requirement Harper had added at my request. 2 years community service at Ridge Lake Veterans Hospital, specifically in the archive department, cataloguing and preserving the stories of aging veterans. "Mum," he started. "Don't," I said. "The jewelry is gone. The trust is gone. The respect is gone. You're 34 years old. Time to earn something back." I left him there with Harper explaining next steps, criminal procedures, bankruptcy law. Outside, the October sun was setting over Ridge Lake, painting the sky purple as a bruise. My phone showed 17 missed calls from extended family who'd seen the video, 3 interview requests from local news, and 1 text from Murray the jeweler. "Saw the news. Your mother would be proud." Would she? Helen Ellison had saved lives under fire, earned a Purple Heart, raised a family. I'd just destroyed one to save some jewelry. No, not just jewelry. Legacy. Promises. The future right to pass something down beyond debt and lies. I drove home to my empty house, where the fake jewelry sat in evidence bags on my kitchen table. Tomorrow, I'd begin the long process of recovery, tracking down sold pieces, filing insurance claims, testifying if necessary. But tonight, I sat with my mother's Purple Heart, returned but somehow heavier, and understood that payback, even when justified, even when necessary, always costs more than you expect to pay. The Shoreline Market buzzed with its usual Sunday energy, but Booth 47 stood empty except for the folding table and abandoned sign, Ridge Lake Estate Collection. The crowd that had witnessed everything 2 hours ago had dispersed, leaving only scattered gossip and cell phone videos spreading across social media like wildfire. I stood at that empty booth now, Patricia beside me with her insurance forms, cataloguing what had been recovered, my mother's Purple Heart, her nursing insignia, the commendation letter all sealed in evidence bags, each tagged with case numbers that would follow Sloan through the legal system for years. "Mrs. Ellison," Patricia said, checking her tablet. "The buyer from New Jersey, the one who purchased the brooch. He's agreed to return it for full refund plus shipping. He saw the video. Wants no part of stolen goods." Small mercy. The brooch would come home. Harper approached with final paperwork, her heels clicking against the asphalt. "Sloan's signature," she said, showing me the asset forfeiture agreement. "She's agreed to surrender any claim to items in her possession, including the replicas." I looked at the signature, flowery, dramatic, just like her Instagram persona that was currently being destroyed, comment by comment online. 2 hours ago, she'd been an influencer with 30,000 followers. Now she was a viral cautionary tale about greed. "What about the prenup enforcement?" I asked. "Fully activated. The 10,000 wedding gift, the 5,000 house down payment, the 3,000 business loan, all due within 90 days, or we proceed with wage garnishment. Since she's likely facing criminal conviction, that debt follows her regardless of bankruptcy proceedings. $18,000, plus $59,000 in criminal restitution, plus whatever the Hendersons and Nguyens would claim. Sloan had traded my family's legacy for a debt that would haunt her through her 30s and beyond." Tyler appeared at the market entrance, walking slowly like a man approaching his execution. He'd been released 20 minutes ago. No charges filed yet, but the threat hanging over him like storm clouds. He stopped 10 feet away, unsure if he was allowed closer. "Mom." I nodded him forward. He looked at the evidence bags, the papers, the remnants of his wife's criminal enterprise. "I called the lawyer Harper recommended," he said. "Meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Good. And I called Ridge Lake Veterans. They said you'd already arranged everything. 2 years. Full time. No pay except what the volunteer stipend provides. Your grandmother spent 2 years in the Pacific. You can spend 2 years preserving stories like hers. He nodded, accepting the judgment. Then, from his pocket, he pulled out something that made my breath catch. A small velvet box, worn at the corners. I bought this back, he said, opening it. Inside sat my mother's sapphire ring, the real one, not the replica. From the woman who bought it last week. Cost me everything in my checking account. But he placed it in my hand. The weight was right. The clarity was right. The micro-engraving was there. HME, 1947. How? I asked. I remembered her name from the sale. Tracked her down through Sloane's customer list before the police seized her phone. Drove to Philadelphia this morning. Explained everything. Showed her the news articles. She was understanding. One Piece returned through conscience rather than law. Maybe there was hope for Tyler yet. Calder approached with his final report. Mrs. Ellison, we've identified 7 buyers total. 3 have already agreed to return items. 2 are consulting lawyers. 2 haven't responded yet. But with the viral video and news coverage, public pressure will likely force their hand. Public pressure. The modern pillory, swift and merciless. And Sloane? I asked. Arraignment is Tuesday. Her lawyers pushing for plea deal full restitution in exchange for probation instead of jail time. But with the forgery and interstate commerce charges, she's looking at minimum 3 years probation, 500 hours community service, and a felony record that will follow her forever. Forever. No more influencer deals. No more corporate jobs. Background checks would reveal everything. She'd spend the next decade working minimum wage to pay off her restitution. Her Instagram dreams as fake as the jewelry she'd used to replace my mother's treasures. I turned to Tyler. Your divorce. Uncontested. She wants out fast. Before criminal proceedings start. We'll be divorced in 60 days. 60 days to end a marriage that had lasted 3 years. 3 years of lies I should have seen. Signs I should have recognized. But like families in the ICU who couldn't accept the diagnosis, I'd wanted to believe everything was fine. The market was closing. Vendors packed up their goods, folding tables and dreams into vans and trucks. The spot where Sloane had stood live-streaming her crime was just empty asphalt now, already being claimed by another vendor for next week. Harper handed me one final document. Recovered item receipt. Sign here to confirm you've received the ring and medals. The insurance company will continue pursuing the other pieces. I signed, then looked at the small collection of what had been returned. Not everything. Not even most things, but enough to know that justice, however messy, had been served. Was it worth it? Tyler asked quietly. Destroying everything for jewelry. I didn't destroy anything, I said, putting my mother's ring in my pocket. Sloane did when she chose to steal. You did when you chose to help her. I just chose to stop being a victim. Patricia closed her case. Harper gathered her files. Calder nodded his goodbye. The officials dispersed, leaving just a mother and son in an emptying market, surrounded by the ghosts of trust and family loyalty. What now? Tyler asked. Now you earn your way back, one day at a time, one story at a time at the Veterans Hospital, one truth at a time. I walked to my car, leaving him standing there, in the driver's seat. I pulled out my phone to find 317 notifications. The video had crossed 3 million views. Comments ranged from support to shock to people sharing their own stories of family theft. Sloane's Instagram had lost another 20,000 followers in the past hour alone. My mother's jewelry would slowly come home, piece by piece, buyer by buyer. The brooch from New Jersey, the pearls from Ohio, each returning with shipping labels and insurance forms. Not all of it, some pieces were probably gone forever, sold to people who'd never come forward. But enough to keep the promise my mother had made that these pieces would pass to the next generation of women in our family. If Tyler ever had a daughter, if he ever earned the right to father a child after this betrayal, she'd receive her great-grandmother's jewelry on her 18th birthday. Not because her parents needed quick cash, not because an influencer wanted content, but because some things aren't meant to be sold. They're meant to be kept, protected, passed on, like stories, like promises, like the hardest kind of love, the kind that chooses justice over enabling, truth over comfortable lies, preservation over present peace. I drove home to my empty house, where fake jewelry no longer sat in my safe, where real treasures were slowly returning, where a son would spend 2 years learning what his grandmother's generation had sacrificed, while his wife paid for what she'd stolen. The receipt Harper had given me lay on the passenger seat. At the bottom, in small print, case closed pending full restitution. Not case closed. Not yet. But close enough. I pulled into my driveway at 5:43 p.m. The autumn sun painting Ridge Lake gold and amber. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork and the slow grind of legal justice. But tonight, I'd won. Not the way I'd planned. Not cleanly or quietly, but completely, publicly. Finally. My mother's voice echoed in memory. Payback isn't about revenge, Maggie. It's about balance. Making things right. I looked at her sapphire ring, recovered by a son trying to find his way back to deserving forgiveness. Things weren't right yet. But for the first time in 6 weeks, the balance was shifting back toward justice, and that was enough. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you listening from? Please comment below and let me know what country or city you're in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about what you would have done in my situation. Would you have confronted them immediately or waited for the perfect moment like I did? Let me know in the comments.